Holla ballers, what's going on? It's Preacher and it's destruction time! Such a silly, goofy spec, isn't it? It is. A lot of people are asking me why it has a stigma around it, especially amongst the top players. I think the biggest issue with it is not that it's relatively simple to play, which it is. It is relatively simple. It's that it seems to be designed around appealing to people who just like big crits. And that has a stigma attached to it. Whether or not you just enjoy them, but you're still a great player, it doesn't matter. People have a stigma attached to that. And on top of that, it's so prone to cheesing unnecessarily. It's very easy to look at certain fights and see multiple Chaos bolts flying around that serve no purpose whatsoever. We look at fights like Megara, total waste of time, right? Klaxi, the same in most situations. People will be using Havoc on cooldown. And that gives it a real sour taste amongst people who don't like that kind of stuff. It's like, yeah, I get it, but you're kind of like the rogue using Blade Flurry when it doesn't matter, the health's going to reset. It's an absolute waste of time to do things like that, and it certainly carries that stigma around with it. Now, in Warlords of Draenor, there are a few things that I think people might have been overly excited about it, and it's not really worked out that way. And it's been balanced quite nicely. So while it sounds depressing, it's actually very good news. Gameplay-wise, not much. Blizzard is pretty happy with what Destruction does and what it is. And I think they're going to leave it like this probably till the end of time. Unless it's some mass exodus from the Warlocks occur because of Destruction, which is very unlikely. It's going to stay pretty much as it is with big fat Chaos Bolts. It's actually designed very, very well in terms of you just wait for procs. That's it. That is your purpose as a standard Destruction Warlock. You wait for procs. No different than in Mists of Pandaria, where you're waiting for your rallying banners and all that kind of stuff. Now, Skull Banner, sorry. Now you're just waiting for trinket procs, and you're using things like the Glyph of Dark Soul to line that up. You can see a trinket proc, Glyph of Dark Soul. Now I'm going to fire off my Chaos Balls. And it's a really, really good testament to design that you can have your charges ready to go. You have them all sat there until you need them and can get best use out of them. And in that respect, I absolutely admire the design of Destruction. It works really, really well. So beyond that, nothing much has changed in terms of Warlords of Draenor. Lost a lot of abilities, curses and whatnot, they're all gone. You'll actually see that from a spec that would have been considered bloated for the longest time in terms of spells, they now have one of the smallest list of spells in the entire game. Consider that most of the things on my spell bar right now in terms of talents are actually unused talents rather than the passives that you can pick up. So that's something to consider. Now, we have to talk about Charred Remains, don't we? Because I think this is something that Destruction Warlocks were really, really giddy about. And I can confirm that I've been in raids with Destruction Warlocks who have been absolutely enthralled by having AoE Chaos Bolts. The issue is, and it's not an issue, is that it actually isn't a massive overly DPS increase. I think people saw the idea that Chaos Bolt hits so hard and it always crits that it's definitely going to be rocking the fucking universe when all those Chaos Bolts land on those targets. And it's not worked out that way. In fact, it does what it does. Everything crits, but in terms of AoE, it's actually quite normal. And that's going to create a really lackluster environment. And Charred Remains itself actually makes everything else really lackluster. I actually think it's a pretty poor talent, if I'm being honest. Excuse me. It actually feels like they've gone back towards a TB style of Warlock without actually going back to it where it was just one button. They've still kept it with the WoD and Mop spells, but made it much more dependent on just casting one thing. If you take Charred Remains, Chaos Bolt becomes so frivolous because you're casting it all the time that you don't wait for procs or anything like that. You just try not to overcap your charges, and that's it. It's literally how it works. It's just spam Chaos Bolt. It's going to end up doing like 60 to 70% of your damage is going to be Chaos Bolt. Everything else is just pointless. Absolutely pointless. And with regard to that, that's why most people are actually moving to Demonic Servitude, which is a talent that I've said countless times I really dislike. It actually, I know they've given pet abilities to the Doomguard nicely, and to the Infernal as well. The problem is they don't match up to a single Fell Hunter, and that really bugs me. It really bugs me as you choose between like Spell Lock or you choose between Dispel. Now, as I've said on the Affliction video, is really good Fell Hunter control in a 5-man dungeon, especially in the WoD environment, is outstandingly fun. It's amazingly fun because you're contributing to the success of that group in so many ways on such a regular basis that I actually find having to choose between them annoying. Now, in a raid environment, that's obviously less of an issue. Your pet's just going to be doing what it's doing, and having a Doom Guard that stands at range and casts nasty, nasty Doom bolts is more than fine. And in a raid environment, no issue whatsoever. I would just say that although it is the go-to for destruction right now, that could hopefully be balanced out. As Cataclysm is kind of underwhelming. Although it hits very hard, it applies Immolate. Destruction Warlocks have no problem immolating everything, right? That is one of the things we do not have an issue with. With Fire and Brimstone, casting Immolate, not really that big of a deal, Blaze, unfortunately. So the Cataclysm thing is kind of very underwhelming. If it did something else, or even just did flat out more damage and didn't apply Immolate, maybe that would be kind of cool. That would be fine. If you had fire, if you do say a Fire and Brimstone Cataclysm, it just does way more damage. That would be fine, but maybe that would be overpowered. I don't know, but the Immolate side of things really lets that down, in my opinion. Makes it really uninteresting compared to what I can already do. In terms of a level 100 talent, I can do 50% of what this talent does already without any issue whatsoever. So that makes it a little bit dull. So, although the level 100 talents are uninspired, I think we've got to agree for Destruction, they're very, very uninspired. Cataclysm does 50% of what we do already. The Charred Remains turns you into just a Chaos Bolt spammer. And if you love huge crits, which some people do, and no issue with those guys whatsoever, then that's where you will go to. But I have to say, it gets so old so quickly, even in comparison to the people who said it got really old in MOP. It gets old in about 30 seconds with Charred Remains of firing off Chaos Bolts, because you're just doing it all the time, and it's a non-thing. It very quickly becomes just a spell. Just a spell that you're casting, despite the flashy graphic, despite the huge crits. It's just something you do all the time, and it's balanced really well, so you don't see that much of a DPS gain. It's nice and all, but it's really determined on playstyle, which is the point. Let me say that although I don't like it personally, that is the point of that talent, is to choose if you want to see that. That's how it's going to play out. That's how it's going to play out. It would be nice to see the other two talents do something better. Not much else to say on this one. It just plays like it does. It does what it does, and it does it nicely. Destruction is working as intended. You like it or you dislike it. That's the way to go. I think most people's issues with Destruction is if they don't like it, and it's the go-to for cleave fights or whatever, then you're going to have a sad time. If so, that's the nature of the beast. That happens in the game all the time, and it's no big deal. Other than that, I think the biggest issue with it, and has to be brought up, is movement. Moving as a Destruction Warlock is absolute dog shit. Absolute dog shit. And I can totally sympathize. As much as with Affliction and Demonology you have choice, with Destruction, out of habit of wanting and needing to feel like I want to be casting all the time, I hate Destruction for its movement. I have to hate it, because I felt myself saving conflag for it. I felt myself doing that for movement. I have to move soon. I'm going to save my conflag. I'm like, why am I saving conflag? Why? Why do I have to do that? Otherwise, I just do nothing on the move, and that feels worse. Oh, God. It needs something on the move. If anything needs Fell Flame, it is Destruction, because moving around mobility fights are just awful. So bad, and really let the spec down, in my opinion anyway. There you go, Destruction, guys. Enjoy.